Let's say you're looking for the simple version, simple way to make waves. The first thing I'm going to do is create a gradient. The closer areas need to be my dark, deep water. So I'm going to use this straight blue. This will be fun. I want to prove to you that it is not the exact color that makes it look like water. It can be any color. As it gets further away, as the angle tilts away from your eyes, it needs to be more of the color that it's reflecting from above the surface, which is the sky. And I'm saying that the sky is light blue, so I'm going to start moving this toward a light blue. None of the elements that I've explained in making waves use this exact color. And I want to show you that you can use any color as long as you follow these patterns. Now I've got all the gradients done, so this is my base layer that represents all of my deep water colors. And you can see that I've got it getting lighter, lighter, lighter. Even though I didn't do such a great job of lighter, lighter, it kind of suddenly starts right here. So, you know, I don't get an A+ on that one. You can see I made a nice sharp horizon up here. I just did my blue and white mix all the way across. And each color I added blue and white to it as it goes up. And just to remind you, that is because I'm assuming that I have a blue and white sky reflecting on this. So back here represents my above water colors that are going to be reflecting. And down here represents my underwater colors that are only on the faces of the waves, and specifically the closest waves. So now it's time to do those same wave shapes. I've got my cheap little brush. All I care about on these brushes is that they look nice and sharp on that edge right there. So get that wet to start with. I have my blue and white mix right here. This is watered down so that when I put it on, it's going to be, you're going to be able to see through it. And because it's so watery, it's not going to dry quite as fast either, and I'll be able to kind of taper it as I go. So I'll start making those smile shapes, following the same pattern. See, so I'm coming down off the edge of a wave, and I'm making my pattern wider as it dips into this trough, and then skinnier as it comes up this way. And then it doesn't really matter where I start ramping up onto another wave. I can do that anywhere. As long as I just make it get skinnier as it goes up, wider as I go down. See, I can make two waves right here, one right in front of the other. Maybe they merge into one wave. And as long as I follow that pattern of wider as I go down and skinnier as I go up. And again, this would be my brightest spot, so I will be coming back and you know, maybe doing a little bit of fine-tuning on some details. I make one stroke that comes down or goes some direction. I make another stroke that just crosses right over one of the ends of that stroke. So I try not to, you can see that pattern repeating itself here. I don't do a whole lot of crossing right over another stroke like that. And so this causes that look that I've been showing you all along when you have a trough and then the point meets the trough of another, and then that point comes down. So the point of the wave comes up and meets the trough at some point, and that pattern repeats itself. So I do practice at making my strokes connect with each other in that way, and so I just move a little more quickly as my comfort level is higher with it. And as you practice this, you will get faster. Okay, so now I'm just going to start filling this out. And as I get higher in the picture, I am going to try to make smaller and more stretched out shapes. I'm not up high yet, I'm still in the foreground. Right down here in the front is where I can make the most diagonal lines You know, I'm not stretching them out this way. I can really bring them down and do more of a X pattern on these. And this is kind of fun how as the brush starts running out of paint, it just kind of feathers it on here and leaves softer shapes. See, so this would be the top of a wave right here, meeting the trough between two waves here. But in my foreground, these lines swoop down a lot more than they would if I was doing that same thing up here. Like in here, you can see I kept them a lot more horizontal than I am when I'm down here in the front. Now I do have my downward angle on the brush, just like I explained in that YouTube video, but if you haven't seen that, then what I'm talking about is I have a downward angle on the brush, and as I swoop my brush across, it tends to blend the top edges of my brush strokes. And so sometimes I'll dip just the corner, so you can see I have this corner, that right side corner, and so that will be my lower end of the brush. And I'm pointing the whole brush down a little, and then that corner is lower, so that the corner of the brush that's not loaded goes over the top and blends that edge away. I'm looking for a good place to demonstrate that. So here, you can see the bottom of that is much sharper, and it makes a natural gradient upward. Just like that. When I do a whole bunch of those together, it causes that look of the wave swooping back. See, so it's a different technique than the wet on wet that I was using, yet it's the same principle of where everything belongs. Good technique is built on knowledge of the subject. One thing that's probably not quite as easy with this technique, though, is getting a big difference between the highlights, the areas that you don't want to be as bright, and the highlights that you want to be brighter. So that's why I come back with the second color to do the highlights a brighter color, because this all looks relatively the same compared to what it might if I was doing wet on wet, where it's doing a lot more mixing as I'm putting it on. Higher in the picture, I definitely want to have more of the reflection color. But I already do, because I made that gradient. So that saves me a lot of work. That's an advantage of this wet on dry method, is it is definitely faster. See, as I'm coming back over this and adding new strokes, like I said before, I'm trying not to crisscross them right over other strokes, but trying to bring them right over the top, just like that. You know, I'll see a stroke, I'll see a few strokes like this, and then I'll take some and put it right over the tops of them. I think that causes it to look more like waves stacked in front of each other. And I do a lot of this where I come back to areas I've already done once they've had time to dry, so that I'm not pulling paint off. You know, when it's halfway dry, it kind of crumbles off of there when you come over it with more wet paint. So after it's had a few minutes to dry, I can come back and add more, lighten it up. And that's a good time to identify where my little smiles are taking shape, and make sure that I'm not making X's, but that I'm widening those strokes that come down. Those smiles need to be opened up and have a more level top on them. See this one? This goes down this way, this goes down this way. I've got two lines kind of making an X there. So that's going to look better if I try to level this out a little bit. But I do have a small wave there, and I don't want to get rid of that guy, so we'll do a little will be good. See, so I leveled out this little trough here, I leveled out this little trough here. That really helps with the perspective of it, making it look like three-dimensional waves. Okay, now I'll show you. I'm going to slow down and be a little more careful, a little more calculated with my strokes. And I'm just going to go more pressure, less pressure. See how it's fatter in the middle? And I can do a lot of those. And that'll be especially helpful when I get up into the background here, when I'm making real tiny ones. And I can start just gradually bending it upward like this, so that altogether it's making the edge of a wave kind of coming up. Yet my brush strokes are not necessarily the smiles anymore. Just showing you a different way, a different pattern. They can make some different looking waves. See, after I put a few strokes down, I come back on those same strokes and just try to catch the top edge of them. Helps feather them upward a little bit. Show you again. I have a wave like this. I don't want it to look like it just very suddenly has a chiseled edge that's suddenly catching the reflection. You know, if it's a more rounded three-dimensional shape, then I might have a few smaller areas as it rounds toward the front of the wave. So then I'll put these tiny guys in there. You saw earlier with the other technique how I rounded little corners. That's a little harder to do with this technique, but I can still do it. As the brush runs out of paint, I can come back and kind of feather over these, and you can see this corner kind of getting rounded. And I think just the busyness of it all causes the corners to naturally look more rounded. When I get up into this background, these strokes are just going to disappear because I made that gradient go all the way to this color. So I can put a million of them here, but you're not going to see them because it's the same color. And now something that might be fun to do, now that I have most of this picture covered, is to look for larger patterns. And if I see some, like some bigger waves emerging by accident, then I'll try to really build off that, make it look like I did it on purpose. You know, like I definitely have an area right here that goes all the way across. So I don't want to make a big old straight line. I'll just enhance the appropriate area of each wave that's on this path. And I'll be careful not to make them all in a perfect line. Not that that couldn't happen, it just will look more natural if I have it a little bit staggered. If I want to brighten something, like I explained with the last technique I did, when I brightened those blue waves with the green at the top of each wave, there's an order of color change to follow. So imagine that this color is at the bottom of a ladder, and as it gets brighter, it goes violet, and then it goes red, and then orange, then yellow, to a bright white. So if you're putting yellow in it, it needs to be very bright before you're actually putting yellow in that dark color. Now, the blue is, I'm glad that I made the violet next to the blue, because the blue goes the opposite direction. The blue does not go blue, then violet, then red. Like this change right here, from the blue to the violet, it goes blue, and then green, and then yellow, and then white at its brightest color. So if you're adding yellow, again, it needs to be very bright. So there's kind of a line here between blue and violet. If you imagine a rainbow going both directions, and the blue is going to go blue, green, and then if I kept going, I go the yellow, and then the bright white. This violet, then the next would be red. They go opposite directions. So if I completed my rainbow, I have my rainbow colored water, if I completed that rainbow and went out, this one would go, just like I said, violet, red, orange, yellow. This would go blue, green, yellow. And so the green is just like the blue, but it's already green. So it's already at the green stage, but it's still got to climb the same ladder. It goes green and then more yellow, and then at its very brightest, it becomes white. So following those rules, I'm going to take this violet and I'm going to do the next color up the ladder. So that's going to be red. It needs to be red-er, not red. I don't want to confuse you. It's not going to just be a bright blood red on there. So now I'll just come right up to the tips of these waves here, and I'll bring this down and maybe smear it out with my hand so that, oops, I didn't mean to smear it across my reflection there. Because I want it to have a soft transition into that deeper color. Right there. And then I can just make little highlights on the tips of these waves. Some here, some here. It still might be too much red. Little difference goes a long way. You know when you've gone too far and there's kind of a delicate balance, of getting that color to be just the right amount redder and just the right amount lighter. I mean, I know I've gone too far when it starts to look like it's a different substance. If I put it on and it looks like it is in fact a brighter area of the same material, then I know I've got my color right. So up in here, these colors are a lot lighter, and so I'm going to try lightening my highlight color also, but I'm going to lighten it with both blue and white because that's what this is. It's more of the sky color, so I'm just going to add sky color to it. Yeah, see, that's going to look better on these more distant ones. Just little highlights wherever. I'll start adding a little bit of yellow to these real bright high ones, just so I can show you that application of climbing that ladder in that order. So my brightest little areas here, we'll just make it splashing up and catching the sun. That's pretty extreme. I mean, honestly, that's probably too much, but the effect is still there. Look how it looks like it's lit up. Just blend it out with my hands. You can probably put a little bit right here. So the blue has to climb the ladder in the order of green, then yellow, then white. I'm not going to get to the yellow. I'm not going to get to the white. That's just the order. Okay, we fill this in. How about some water? I could do that with a brush also. See, another way to do that would be to much softer. It'll look nicer. It's just more tools in my hand, so I don't especially love multitasking, Now, here's something interesting. So with blue, I go in a different direction than with the violet. So then at which point, how violet, how blue? What about this color right down the middle? The answer is, since I'm going opposite directions, the color that I would use for something that's right in the middle, like a blue-violet, just get lighter. It doesn't follow any color change, just gets lighter. That only happens if it's right there in that balance between the blue and the violet. So I come down here, add my lighter color. Try to make it meet up with that other one. Okay, I'll add some more of my sky color as I'm getting further back here. There we go. Oh yeah, that'll be good. Then we'll just grab another brush. So in the process of doing these highlights, I did lose a little bit of my highlights from the reflections. So now is probably a good time to come back and use a brighter white and do little bright highlights over those. Save the brightest for last. So this is not a pure white, even though it might look like that in comparison with the rest of these colors. It's right here on the edge of my little bucket, and you can see that I mixed the blue into that. When you take a real light blue and you put it over a very dark blue, you see the white, and it looks like I'm just painting with white over this. So remember, I just do them on these portions of the wave. And it's just reflection on top now, so I don't need to worry about my different colored underwater. I don't want to come over to a wave and I don't want to take this wave and go bright there and then make it. See, that doesn't look right. All that bright right on the top, and I want that to taper to a point. There, looks better, doesn't it? If I had my sun over here, the brightest part, then I might just do all the left sides, not even do the right sides. You know, just depends. Or if I'm just generally trying to enhance the reflection on my waves, I might just do it all over the place, which is kind of my approach at the moment. I like the way that looks. That's some crazy looking water. Just make little dots in here. Dunk. Now I'm just having fun.